Our speaker today, the Honorable Martha Lane Collins, is an American former businesswoman and leader from the United States state of Kentucky. She was the state's 56th governor from 1983 to 87. Prior to her election as governor, she was the 48th lieutenant governor of Kentucky under John Y. Brown, Jr. As of 2014, she is the only woman to have been a governor of Kentucky, and her election at the time made her the highest-ranking Democrat woman in the United States. She has an interesting timeline and experience, and I've asked her to share personally some of her background and education, but let me just mention that she was selected in '77. The Woodford County chapter, Business and Professional Women, chose Collins as its 1976 Woman of Achievement, and 1977 Governor Julian Carroll named her Kentucky Executive Director of the Friendship Force. In 1985, she was really an ambassador for Kentucky. She visited China, the first for any Kentucky governor, and encouraged opening Chinese markets to the state and established a relationship between Kentucky and China. In 1987, she has demonstrated strong leadership and also had some tough decisions to make. In 1987, Governor Collins called a special legislative session to close a deficit between state contributions to the Workers' Compensation Fund and disbursements. In 1990, Governor Collins accepted the presidency of St. Catherine College in Springfield, Kentucky. She became the first president of the small Catholic college. This is interesting. I have to share this with you. The first president of the small Catholic college who was not a Dominican nun. And so she may want to talk more about that. But Governor Collins has been not only an exemplary leader in Kentucky, her name is oftentimes associated with economic advancement, economic improvement, and of course Toyota, the Toyota Corporation in Georgetown, Kentucky. There are many good things, and as we have had an opportunity to travel in Kentucky, and some of you from that state know that Governor Collins was probably one of the most popular governors in the history of the state, and we're so pleased to have her here today. I believe now she serves really as an ambassador for international opportunities for the state and looking at markets and economic privileges and opportunities for the state of Kentucky around the world. We are so pleased to have Governor Collins with us. She is a friend, and we count her as an important supporter of education and the quality of life in our region. Let's give her a good hand of applause.
My mother had a great mind, and I wish at that time more people, are going back now and getting their degrees, but at that time, not too many were doing that. So she was the disciplinarian of the family, and there was very strict rules at our house. I was an only child, okay? I'm spoiled, right? But I always like to take advantage of opportunities. When I was growing up in Baghdad, we lived in this house, and there was a field behind it. It wasn't a very big field, but I thought at the time it was a huge field. Then there was a barn. So I decided that Baghdad didn't have a swimming pool, and I thought we needed a swimming pool for the children there. I was 6, 7, okay? So I got my friends one day to come to the house, bring a hoe, a shovel, whatever they could that you could dig with, okay? And we started digging a swimming pool. I had it laid out, and we started in a corner, and we'd gotten pretty deep. I kept going into the house to get cookies and Kool-Aid, and you got to feed your workers, right? And so I fed them, and they kept digging, and my mother would say, "Martha Lane, what are you doing?" "Nothing, Mother, we're just playing." And so finally she came down and came out to the lot behind the house and saw what we were doing and said, "Martha Lane, that's the craziest idea, dumb idea. You can't build a swimming pool." And I was devastated. And she said, "Fill it back up." So we did. That made an impression on me that, you got to have ideas, and you can't always not do them. Sometimes people will say it can't be done, but you just keep plugging and you get it done. Because I'd already talked to a fella at the grocery store in Baghdad about concrete. I knew you had to have concrete in a swimming pool, okay? And he said, "Sure, you dig the hole, we'll put the concrete in." Now, that was a long time ago. And since then, there's always been a challenge, as you know. Everybody has challenges. Women, I think, have special challenges a lot of times. And so when we attempt to do things, we kind of get sold short or not encouraged sometimes. But one of those things is you just have to just keep plugging. And I think about it, back when I presided over the Democratic National Convention, the Moscone Center in D.C., in California, my partner was Tip O'Neill. And we had 3 candidates at the time, and I wanted to be sure that nobody got angry because if they stormed off out of the room, then I would be guilty of that candidate not winning, probably, because I couldn't control the convention. So Tip O'Neill and I would have meetings with everybody, and he'd sit at one end of the table, and I sat at the other end of the table. Great person, great person. And we kind of had it ironed out as to what we would do, what we would say. And needless to say, we got through that. Of course, our candidate did not win. But then when I was at St. Catherine College, you mentioned St. Catherine, I was brought there because they were having trouble. It was going to close. My job was to keep it open, okay? My job was to try to make it grow. And so who did I have come give a commencement address at St. Catherine College? Tip O'Neill. And so it's the connections that we make and how we are creative, how we constantly are trying to look for a new or better way, a faster way, or whatever. And that played out when I was governor, because when you're the first female governor in the state of Kentucky and you have a legislature that has never, well, you've had maybe a lieutenant governor, female lieutenant governor presiding over the legislature, but not making the decisions, not in a decision-making position. And so that was one of those things where I could have done what maybe some of the other of my male counterparts, I say I belong to a great fraternity. It's a great fraternity of former governors, but I could have taken the phone and said, this is Governor Collins, I want this done by noon, do it. Chances are it might not have happened. Might not have happened, because people have a tendency to wait you out. And if you don't like that decision, I could only have 4 years at the time. I couldn't succeed myself. And so I decided that the best way to get things done was to bring people into a room and get their ideas and let it be their ideas. Because I'm not out, I don't want headlines. I don't want my name in the paper. I'm not looking for publicity. So we would have a meeting, and I'd say something like, well, someone mentioned to me the other day that we might ought to do this. And what do you think? And then you sit quietly. Don't say anything at all. Just sit there. And all of a sudden, they start talking. And someone makes a suggestion, and someone builds on it. And then someone else builds on that, and somebody builds on that. And by the time you're finished, it's their idea. They're going to do it. It's their project. And so I never worried about it, because if you are successful on something, then you'll get credit. If that's what you want, you'll get the credit because it's your people. So I found that to be building a consensus and getting people involved and letting them make the decisions, rather than for me to try to be a tough female. There are times when you have to be, as you know. But I like to think that men and women working together is the best way we can do everything. Men think of things women don't, women think of things men don't, and if we'll just put them together, we have the best. I got the best pieces of legislation, the best regs, when I had men and women both sitting at the table. I think that's very true of education. I think that's true in anything in life. But anyway, I think that this leadership and education is extremely important. My mother would take me to church every time the doors were open, and we studied missionaries. And if you study missionaries, you learn all about the country. You learn about the topography, the geography, the politics, the education, the food, the clothing. You learn about the country. So that was one of the advantages I had when I became governor, because we needed jobs in Kentucky. And I had to find jobs for us. And so after we decided that we were going to focus on automotive, I went to all of the automotive manufacturers in the United States of America and asked them if they wanted to come. I thought I ought to start at home first and give them the opportunity. And when I didn't have any takers, I decided then to go overseas. So we go to Asia. And I started calling on Toyota. Cold calls. They had not said that they were going to come to North America. And so we go in, and I feel like we built very great relationships, partnerships. A location was also good. That was an advantage, because as governor, I had just lost Saturn to Tennessee. How about that? You know how Kentucky and Tennessee are. We compete in everything, right? I do want to say this weekend, we're coming for a visit. I hope you'll be nice. But I also have tried to call your new basketball coach, Donnie Tyndall, because Donnie Tyndall was my basketball coach at St. Catherine, okay? Small world. And he took my basketball team to Kansas City, first time the school had ever gone to that tournament. And they didn't win, but he took them at first. And so now I've tried to call him, and I know, I'll tell you, he's in Maryland. They're on the road, so I'm going to follow up and keep up with him. But it's those contacts and the things. Sometimes it's where we teach. Sometimes it's in politics. Sometimes it's just at church, wherever the contacts may take us. But anyway, back to Toyota. When Saturn decided to come to Tennessee, there was a little flip, because, that female, don't guess she can negotiate, whatever. So I thought, that's okay. Lamar Alexander and Honey were there. My husband, I'll introduce my husband, Bill. He was the only male who went to all of the female parties and things when the governors got together, so he knew Honey. And so we had a governor's conference, and everybody had their paper open, and it said, Saturn goes to Tennessee and everything, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, okay, it's my turn. So we worked on Toyota. When you've got 7 contiguous states around you, and they're all guys who are governors, and the competition's pretty tough. And so I'm trying to think, as governor, how I can overcome some of these things quickly, okay? So we go to Toyota, start calling on them, and things just kept building on that, and they asked for information, and we'd send it to them. And finally, we started out with about 26 states competing for Toyota. And it was narrowed down. You'd send information in, and they'd cut people off the list, and they'd ask for more information. You'd send it in, and they'd keep cutting. And it got down to Kentucky and Tennessee. We were going to be competing for Toyota. So I had, part of teaching is listening. Listening to students, listening everywhere, so that you can have that information. And so I found out that the students in the Far East, in Korea, Japan, all of those, study folk music. So they had studied Stephen Foster. And then every time I'd go in the room, there'd be a magazine or a TV guide on the TV, and there would be fireworks. So as we were competing, and they were going to come to Tennessee, and Tennessee showed them another site, so they were a little late getting to Kentucky. I had planned, instead of another business dinner, because we had lots of business dinners, this should be a special night. So we had the food I knew that they would like, and I served beef, because that's in honor of people. They serve us beef when we go over there because we're their special guests, and so we serve beef. And then for dessert, I served baked Alaskas. You know, baked Alaska's ice cream, you put a meringue on it and whatever. They don't eat a whole lot of dairy products. But when the carts came in out of the pantry, and the guys had on their white jackets, black pants, white tea carts, these big baked Alaskas, we stuck sparklers in them as they rolled out and lit them. Turned down the lights so when they rolled out, ooh, ah, ooh. I thought, okay, I haven't offended them yet, okay? You got to be careful. And so then after that, we went to the ballroom, and I had someone at the piano playing, just like you all had My Old Kentucky Home. I thought that was nice before the ball game Saturday. But anyway, we had a gentleman playing the piano, and I had gone to Bardstown and gotten the Stephen Foster singers. So all of the girls were in their big dresses, and the guys, and they were singing Stephen Foster songs. The Japanese know all the words to My Old Kentucky Home. They don't wait and come in on Weep No More My Lady like Kentuckians do, but they were singing Camptown Races and Oh Susanna and all these. They know all those words, okay? So they like that. They enjoyed that. Now, I got to remind you that they were about 2.5 hours late coming to Kentucky. So most dinners are over at 9 o'clock. You can set your watch by dinner, at Japanese dinner, okay, business dinner. Well, we were beyond that. We were 10:15, 10:30, or whatever. So then after the Camptown races and all that, we go out on the front porch of the mansion, and I have people over behind the annex shooting fireworks over the Capitol Dome because they like fireworks. I mean, it's, you know, it was a compliment. It was one way of showing that we knew what they liked and we wanted to be partners with them. Wasn't all that expensive. But we're in the Capitol in Frankfort is down with a river around it, and so everything is much louder than it normally is there. And so at 11 o'clock, fireworks are going off, you know. The little ladies that retired and widows and the families with little children who had already gone to bed, all of a sudden. So the phone starts ringing at the police department, the fire department in Frankfort, the security at the mansion, and I couldn't tell people ahead of time what we were going to do. But it was a different competition. It was a different dinner. It was different. Creativity, being able to do something a little different, to show somebody that you know them, you appreciate them, you want to work with them, we're going to be partners, you invest in us, we're going to invest in you, and so we're friends. And I think that, very frankly, was how one of the major things that had Toyota coming to Kentucky. Of course, I got 2 or 3 bad editorials because I had media under bushes and different places because they didn't know what was going on. And but that happens, doesn't it? We try our very best, have the best decision we possibly can, and then sometimes it doesn't meet the expectations of the public, so to speak. Ever happened to you? Yeah, okay. But it's going to happen, and that's what makes us grow. And that's what makes us try to be more creative, more inventive, more whatever. The other thing I did that I found and didn't realize at first, I just wanted to make things happen. I had 4 years. That's all I had, okay? And that was that when the project teams of not just Toyota, but many of the supply companies and many other companies that were looking at Kentucky, when the project teams would come in, now their bosses have asked them to come. They, I'm sure, came to Tennessee, to Ohio, Illinois, these places over here on the map, okay? They were looking for answers. So they had a sheet with lots of questions, you know, whether it was the land, whether it was taxes, whether it was education, whether it was health care, whatever it might have been. They needed answers to take back to the bosses. So I took my cabinet secretaries And the cabinet secretaries that would have the answers about hiring, about natural resources, about roads, about whatever, okay? And I would have the cabinet secretaries sitting on one side of the table and the project team sitting on this other side of the table. They ask a question. The cabinet secretaries could say, yes, we'll build that road. We'll build that turn lane. We'll widen that road. We'll do whatever, stoplights, whatever you have. Yes, we'll work with you on hiring. We'll do the first 2 steps, then you can finish it out. I mean, whatever the decision was. So when the project team left Kentucky, they had all the answers. Sometimes they would go to a state where somebody else would say, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you. Okay? So when the project team goes home to talk to the bosses, they have the answers from Kentucky. And guess what? Because we helped make their job so easy, they helped us. They were our advocates in the decision-making room. So it's little things like that. Now, you all have that. You deal with that on a day-to-day basis in education. You've got a challenge. Every student that comes in front of you is a challenge. And what we have to do is to make them more creative. I don't know about you all, but, and I don't want to get into a controversial thing, but I get a little tired of all this testing. Okay? Testing is okay to a point, but we got to be creative. We've got to get our young people thinking away from their little phone, their little whatever they've got, okay? And using their heads and thinking. But the other thing I want us to do is, and the reason I'm talking to you all, frankly, in Tennessee, is because we have so much together. You have some of our students, we have some of your students. And I am delighted that we're doing these partnerships. I think that's helpful, you know. When our Kentucky people come down, you all like our money. And when your all's people come to Kentucky, we like your money. And so what we want is to work, the bright kids are going to make it. They're going to make it with a little, you know, they know how to work within the framework. We have so many young people that need our help, really need our help. I remember at St. Catherine, I was out recruiting. And I went to a school one day, and you know how you have 2 rooms and the 2 doors where the kids come out, in and out, are together. And so I was standing and talking to a teacher over here, and all of a sudden this teacher's door swung open. But they were changing classes, and this one, I was saying hi to the kids, and I was trying to recruit. And this one young man came out, and he was just bubbly. I mean, he could have sold ice cubes to the Eskimos, okay? He was that good. He made me feel at home in this school, and I just thought he was sharp, and I said something about the student, and the teacher said, oh, no, he's not college material. And I said, what do you mean he's not college material? And she said, well, because he lives down on wherever, and nobody in his family's ever gone to college. Well, I mean, I got him. I got him, okay? Because he was college material. And he was very capable, and he's very successful. So what I'm saying to you is the more partnerships we can do, the more we can help each other, the more creative we can make our students, the more we can make them ingenious. Because of all of the technology that we have, and because of the competition around the world, the competition's getting tougher and tougher. The world's getting smaller and smaller, and you all know that. And so I'm concerned about how we face this and how we take advantage of it. You know, see to it that our kids go overseas. I don't know, I'm trying to get more of our legislators to go overseas. You know, they're sitting there making decisions. And I want them to be able to understand what happens in a country and how they need to vote to help you with education, how they need to vote to help with any other decision that they have to make there as a legislator. I take business people, legislators, and elected officials. because they all work together. And legislators need to know not to pass something because it affects the business people, it's punitive to them, or whatever. And the more we can work together, the better off we really are. Anybody have any questions? We're in the middle of whatever. What am I doing now? Well, right now what I'm doing is, as governor, of course, I was bringing jobs to Kentucky. I mean, the reverse investment was the big push. And ever since I left office, I've been in higher education, basically. I was at the University of Louisville, the University of Kentucky. I went to Harvard for a semester. I had St. Catherine. We turned that into, it's now a 4-year school instead of a 2-year school. So I've been in education, and I keep working in that. I'm not the pro or the expert. I just know from the land of hard knocks or the world of hard knocks and how we can do it. But I am now trying to do more exports for Kentucky. Kentucky has a lot of good products and services, and there's a market for it out there. 96% of the consumer markets are outside of the United States of America. So I want us to prepare our students to compete outside, and our business people to compete outside. So what I do is try to get with companies. If they already export, let's see if we can find them 2 or 3 more markets. If they've never exported before, I put World Trade, State Chamber, CAM, which is the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers, state government, and the commercial services out of Washington, D.C. together. So if a company has a problem with, it scares them because it's a foreign language, we can take care of translating. If they're afraid of the government, what's required by the government, we've got people who take care of that. World Trade and state government, our economic development people. So I've got like a team. It's a consortium. When you go into a meeting with a business, then you've got the answers for them. You can help them. You can take them by the hand. Last year for the little state of Kentucky, we shipped out $25.3 billion worth of product. Now, it's going to grow this year. We're going to have done more this year. But that's nothing to sneeze at when you're looking for more money. And that's better than raising taxes or getting money from other ways. And it makes our companies grow, they expand, they hire more people, and they bring revenue into your state. So that's what I'm working on now. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You know, everything was, what I did, of course, was to hire people a lot of bright people that I surrounded myself with, okay? Things that I didn't know. I had somebody there who knew them, knew the things, and we worked as a team. I'm a big team advocate. You remember in schools when we wouldn't let kids sit close to each other because they were going to copy off of each other's papers. You remember that? Well, you go to Japan or you go to some of these other schools and they're sitting right next to each other and they're working as teams. And it's the companies and the schools and whatever, the people that work as teams that are advancing much more quickly. America's getting to where they are doing that now, more so than they did in the past. But I almost hate to tell you all, but you know what I majored in when I went to college? Anybody want to guess? Wasn't history, wasn't political science. home economics. Because back in the Ice Age, and some of those things you were telling them, it was almost like the Ice Age, okay? Back in 1970-something. But anyway, back in those days, they had come out with the demonstration, television came out, and they were demonstrating refrigerators and ranges and things like that. That's what I wanted to do, okay? I wanted to demonstrate equipment. And so I took home economics. And my political advisor said, heaven forbid that you tell anybody you majored in home ec. I said, it's okay, I can't cook or sew. But I took a lot of science, a lot of math, and mainly with pre-med students. So it was not a SNAP family living course all the, by itself or whatever. And it was so varied that, frankly, it was good. So when we had a flood or a tornado or whatever, I'd all of a sudden come out with something that I'd learned in one of these classes, and it was very inspirational to the team that I had there with me that, oh, she knew that. Oh, why didn't we think of that? And especially when we're trying to put families back together and you have devastation, you have everything, we're looking for the electricity, the gas, the whatever. As a female, the children have got to have milk. The children have got to have food. The children have got to have. So the women cabinet secretaries that I had and people that I had working with me were coming along with that. So therefore, you did the whole, and everybody felt better about things rather than, because for example, in New Orleans, when a lot of the rescue people quit because their families were so devastated and they just couldn't leave, they felt like they needed to go back to their families, so they quit their jobs. So that's why I think team approaches are the best way to go. And I think that, just whatever you learn, whatever it is, make the best of it. So bacteriology, anatomy and physiology, chemistry, biochemistry, little stuff. It was okay. Anybody else with a, uh-huh?
As governor, what were your greater concerns about
Well, my two priorities, when I gave my acceptance speech and everything, the two priorities were, one, education, and two, economic development, and they go together. Some of the other governors would be a transportation governor or maybe an education governor or maybe an economic development governor, but they didn't put those two together, and those two go together. And you need to do them together because companies like to know that you're investing in your people, that you're teaching them, that you're training them, that you're going to have a trained workforce. And I'm sure you all have heard this 152,000 times. But it is extremely important when they're going to invest millions of dollars in your area. They want to know that there's going to be people there that can help them make their money back. So I put an emphasis on education and economic development. I started the reform in Kentucky and got a bill passed for that. And then working with the economic development, to get the word out of what we were trying to do. I wanted to do more. Governor Brown had tried to do the full day or the everyday kindergarten, and that didn't work for him. I came back with the full kindergarten, and then we did some other things in education, like reform. I got a $300 million package, but when I introduced it, okay, because you're elected in November, you're sworn in December, and your session of the legislature is January, okay? So you can imagine I had a house to take care of, all your employees, the whole thing to get ready for that. And so I introduced my bill for education, And then I started calling the legislators in. Now, there was really two parts to it. One was the education part, but then there had to be a revenue enhancement, which I had taken care of. It was not going to be for the whole public, but I had taken care of it through businesses and things. And so, but then they had a primary in May. So in late January, February, March, you're talking to legislators and trying to get them to vote. The education part was okay. They just didn't want to vote for that enhancement because it might be misunderstood, okay? And so I was calling them in, and they weren't telling me yes. I had, the drawer that pulls out, the stenographer's little thing, and I had everybody's name and a column for yes and a column for no and a column for comments, like I need a road, or I want Joe Blow's son hired, or I want whatever. But it wasn't going real well. So finally, when we put the cabinet members together and I explained what I saw, I decided to withdraw my legislation. Because had I made my friends vote on it, they would have gotten what we call bloody. I mean, they would have voted on it. They might have gotten beaten in the May primaries. So what would I have had? Nothing, okay, because it wasn't going to pass. So when I withdrew it, the headlines were Collins hits rocky road in education. And I thought, okay, I'll just wait. So after the session of the legislature was over, in the summer, I decided that I was going to go county by county in certain areas, and we were going to try to have the people come and help the legislators be able to vote on it, okay? And it would be after the primary in May. And so I had basketball coaches and their wives, I had bankers and their friends, and I had different ones, and we went to different places and had rallies. And we had lots of people turn up, show up at the school gymnasiums usually. I took a Democratic governor, Julian Carroll, and a Republican governor, Louis Nunn, with me, so it was bipartisan. And we went around, and then I called a special session of the legislature in July. It just so happened that the House and the Senate chambers were not air conditioned. So I called a special session, and in 4 days, we got the bill passed, signed, and recorded. So that I started the reform, and then after that came the KERA, and I wasn't there to do the KERA. Mm-hmm. That was really done mainly under Wallace Wilkinson. I mean, when you say finance reform, you're referring to the money. Well, we did a bankruptcy. Is that what you're referring to? Okay. We did a bankruptcy. The schools start out in the hole, as you know. And so what we were trying to do was to say that if the people were not trained and could not handle it, that we would try to teach them, or we would take over the school till it got on its feet and we got everything straightened out. And we called it the bankruptcy bill. But what we also did was we went to the University of Kentucky, to the College of Business, and I got a fellow out of there who then started a class, because in many school districts, it's the superintendent's granddaughter who takes care of the books, or it's somebody, okay, that doesn't really have the background that they need to have to know about weekend investments or whatever you can do financially in a particular area with a certain amount of money, okay? And so we had classes for them. And so it's done wonders for us. It really has. They didn't when I was there. They didn't. They are very interested in education. very interested in education. Um, well, again, you know, I included everybody from the beginning. I mean, when a company came, the night we had the dinner party for Toyota, at every table, I had 2 university presidents, I had bankers, I had different people that could talk to the people at the table during dinner and say, Kentucky is a great place to do business, and answer their questions, whether it was education, whether it was finances, or whatever it might be. So I believe in inclusion from the very beginning. And if you have them, then you can find it out, because it's not so much a cookie cutter. It may be now, because, and I have to admit that I haven't, if I get a lead on a company that might want to come to Kentucky, I turn it over to state government. I turn it over to the Department of Economic Development. I work mainly with exports, okay? And so things may have changed a whole lot since I was there. But I would immediately include the people so that they understood. We took people over to Japan, to China, to Vietnam, to Korea, to even when we went to Europe, to Germany and to different places. I took people with me, but they knew that they could not leak. They could not come back home and tell people where we went or who we called on. And I never had a leak. I always tried to take somebody from the media with you. But it had to be somebody that would keep the confidence, and then when things started to break and whatever, they would use judgment on how much they released to it. So when you ask me about that, I mean, they know that we have a lot of controversy, whether it's charter or whatever it might be, in the United States. And because in some cases, we're kind of going down compared to other countries, they have become even more interested in the education and the workforce preparedness. Tom Zawacki is somebody, have you met Tom? Tom Zawacki is somebody else you might want to talk to, because Tom Zawacki used to work for Toyota, and now he's with the workforce in state government in Kentucky. Very good fella. I probably didn't answer your question, but I personally have not had that problem. I guess I can't, because it was not a problem. You know, the incentive package was misunderstood a lot too. I think ours was 147 million, and you would have thought I'd given away the Capitol Dome. You would have thought I'd, and I got more phone calls on that, okay? Well, you can't compare what you all did with Saturn, or what somebody did with Mazda, or what somebody else did with Nissan, or with any of these others, because each company is different. Each need is different. It's not a cookie cutter thing, okay? And so what I did in our incentive package for Toyota was we had to send our people all the way to Toyota City to be trained. They couldn't be sent to Detroit. They had to go to Toyota City. And so that was an expense. I sent 2 teams. So that was a bundle. I built a turn lane and widened an entrance. The investment was worth it. In fact, I got all my money back in less than 7 years. All of it back. And now Toyota donates, they contribute a lot to various organizations, schools, whatever. They sponsor a lot of things. I mean, it's the best business deal. Somebody said, would you do it again? I said, like that. Give me another one, please. And things have changed some in that. But the incentive package, I can remember on the back page of the Lexington Herald Leader, there was a box, and they tried to compare Mazdas and Nissans and whatever and Toyota. and you can't do that. It's just a whole different thing. But that's another thing that financial, people don't understand sometimes. Uh-huh. Did I help with exports? Well, people like Superior Batteries have been an outstanding company that have really grown in exports. All of your beverages, I'll say, okay? Our number one export in Kentucky is aerodynamics. Would you believe it? Because we have a jet engine plant and parts and all that kind of stuff. That's our number one. Number two, yes, cars, automotive. And then under that is various equipment, chemicals, environmental stuff and that kind of thing. And then our fastest growing export is Asian carp. Because down on that western end of the state, down on the rivers and the lakes and whatever, we have a little thing of Asian carp. We don't want them. So there's a lady in the Paducah area, Ballard County, down there, that catches them, and we've helped her learn to process them, and she ships them back to China. They're a delicacy. So I'll be talking to a group of Rotarians or something. I'll say, guys, you all like to fish? And they say, yeah. I said, well, why don't you start a fishing company down in western Kentucky and make money on Asian carp? But one of the things, I kept wondering about Virginia had a great relationship with Saudi Arabia. And I kept wondering, because they've been going over there and taking groups over there for years. And I kept wondering how you get into that. But now we're into it because they happen to like our cars. So we are their 11th trading partner. So it's opened the door. So now if the next governors or whatever will come on and because they've got money and we've got products. Mm-hmm. I've had some experience. For example, I had an agreement at St. Catherine. I had an agreement with a Catholic school in Japan, so I had 2 students a year. And but yeah, Murray State has a lot of international students. Eastern used to have the largest Chinese group. So most of our schools, Western has a lot now. They've been working on their international. I was just trying to think if there was anything that, earth-shaking that I wanted to. The changes that take place, whether it's just in pure education or whether it's in a town, it's hard. People don't like change. I don't know that they'll ever get used to change, okay? And some of us like change. I like progress. I like to see things grow and whatever. You got to have restrictions and you've got to have some control and that kind of thing. I don't mean just open up, but when Toyota announced that they were coming, of course there was some disagreement and people were not real happy in Georgetown for that. I kid them because I was at Georgetown College for like 14 years working there, and I used to say, I guess there's still some people in Georgetown that are not real happy with me to this day. But you have to let people express themselves, and the better informed they are, the easier it is to work with them. It's when none of us like something we don't know what the future is. I mean, we're a little leery of that. And so I just encourage you that the more we inform people, and this is your business, I'm preaching to the choir, but when Toyota announced and they were coming, that was probably the hardest 6 months of my life. Because, one, because it was a foreign company, and two, because it was going to change Georgetown, and they just weren't quite ready for it. Because you couldn't say where they were coming. We had to keep that was confidential. So the changes are hard, and I think our young people are pretty good about that, more so than, see, I have 5 grandkids, okay? Bill and I have a son and a daughter, and now we have 5 grandkids, so I keep working. I'm working for people's children and grandchildren in the future, because I think we need leadership, good leadership, and leadership that I worry about some of the decisions that are made in our governments, both local and Washington, and decisions that are being made are decisions that we're going to have to live with. I mean, they're pretty traumatic, and they can be very profound, I'll put it that way. So when we are doing leadership, it's a matter of not only practicing it or talking about it, but practicing it ourselves. Somebody said, why are you so involved? And I said, because I can't tell people to be involved if I'm not going to be involved. And so teachers, I think, are very involved in many things, most of which are not in your contract, right? So anyway, I thank you all for, I could go on with lots and lots of stories, but oh, my Lou Holtz. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, they have announced, you know, there was a little shakeup in the Toyota in Georgetown, because when they first came, they had their office, their main office, the business office up in Erlanger, Kentucky, and frankly, when they moved in, it was already too small for them. And if I had been governor, I've tried to make some suggestions that we keep looking for land, or we keep looking for a building or whatever, because then we could just kind of help ease them over. But anyway, they knew what they were going to do, because they always plan 10, 15 years down the road, those companies do. But anyway, they divided, because the sales and the manufacturing are at each other quite a bit. And they decided that they were going to reorganize. So some of the people left Erlanger and went to Texas. And so now we've got the Lexus coming in, and when that plant is, when they get that completed, will probably be, depending on whether you're measuring square feet or you're measuring production, will be the largest automotive manufacturing plant in the world. So it was a pretty good change for us. I mean, some people got upset with me. They wanted to know when our contract was going to run out, and I said, it doesn't run out. You don't, we don't have a contract for 10 years or 20 years or something with them. He was talking about Lou Holtz. Again, when I was at St. Catherine, I was trying to hold on to it, because the people kept saying, it's going to close, it's going to close. When I got there, I had less than 200 students, and today they have 800 or 1,000, somewhere in there. It was started by 3 Dominican sisters who were given money to come in there and start an education system for 3 little counties. And I was not Catholic, but I was asked to come in and help them. And I was there 6 years. And so every year, I was looking for a commencement speaker. And so this one year, I decided Lou Holtz would be good. So I contacted him, and I kept calling and calling, and finally he said, this woman won't quit. She won't give up. And so he came and gave the commencement address for us, and I had one of the doctors have a reception at his home where I raised a little more money. So I didn't pay Lou Holtz anything. He gave a tremendous motivational speech, like he can do, and I made better than $20,000 out of it. So those are the things that a home ec major sometimes comes up with. So that's what I'm saying. You know, kids get really uptight. Do they still get uptight about what to major in? They got so many choices, and they don't know. And I say, just get you a job, or get in there, get started, and then you can change if you need to. Yeah, they found out when my birthday was. I don't know that I told them. Well, the relationships that we have with them are really, really special. You know, there are things you do and you don't do in any country, whether it's Korea or whether it's Japan or whether it's Germany or whatever. But my birthday is December 7th. I don't know whether that's good or bad for them, but that's when it was, or that's when it is. So anyway, thank you all. My allergies there's somebody in here with. I'm glad to be in Tennessee, and I thank you all, and I certainly hope that we can work together, and the more partnerships that we form and the closer we work, the better off it is for both of our states. And of course, I'm still going to compete, but good luck to you all, and we wish Kentucky good luck. But anyway, thank you all, and I admire you for what you're doing. I was a school teacher for a number of years, and I appreciate what you do because you're shaping and molding, and it's such an important job. And America just needs to get tougher and tougher and be able to compete more and more. So thank you for what you do.